I'm a psychiatrist from India. Back in the 90s, I opened a small clinic specializing in psychiatric and hypnotherapy treatments. In the beginning, I was flooded with many patients and quickly became successful. Like many Indians, we have deeply ingrained superstitious beliefs from a young age. Most people would visit local priests or exorcists if they felt someone was behaving out of the ordinary. However, I have never believed in the supernatural, ghosts, gods, or spirits. I'll never forget this one peculiar patient. He was 12 years old and came in with his parents. I asked the little boy to wait in the waiting area while I spoke to his parents to understand their concerns. His parents explained, "We took him to many temples, churches, and mosques. Finally, someone recommended trying science as a last resort. Our son is a bright kid. He used to be energetic and well-behaved. Recently, we built a house on our ancestral land and moved in. Since then, the kid has been behaving out of the ordinary. At night, whenever we wake up to drink water or use the bathroom, we don't find him in the house. By the time we search the whole house and check the rooms again, out of nowhere, he is present, sleeping as if nothing happened. He's refusing to go to school, sitting in a corner of the room and just staring at the walls, rocking back and forth. If we try to talk to him, he lets out a scream that's not human. It's demonic. His cries included 2 to 3 voices. One day, we wanted to see what was going on during the nights after we were asleep. We pretended to be asleep, and around 1 a.m. he slowly woke up. We followed him after a minute, and he went to the terrace, sat in a corner, uttering something in a demonic voice. It was a demonic cry. When we went to scold him and put our hands on his shoulder and turned him around, oh God, his eyes were green and glowing. It was a terrifying and painful sight for us. We shook him very hard and shouted loudly, and then he passed out. They begged me, "We don't know what to do. Please help our boy. We will sell everything we have and support the treatment. We just need him to come back to normal again. He is a symbol of our love." Feeling deeply saddened for them, I asked the parents to wait in the waiting area and let the boy in. I made him sit on a recliner and asked him to look at me, but he responded with an evil grin. After some struggle, I attempted to hypnotize him. I asked him to recall the day his parents mentioned after they moved into the new house. He recounted finding a small chain on his way home from school. When I inquired about the surroundings where he found it, he mentioned it was near a cemetery. Oh boy! Since I believe in science, I concluded that the boy had been influenced by stories he heard from his parents and was imagining himself as those characters. When I woke him up from the hypnotic state, asked him, "How are you feeling now?" To my disbelief, he said, "You will see." Then I witnessed what the parents were talking about. The boy's eyes turned green, and he gave me a sinister grin. He warned me, "Your time will come soon. You shouldn't have found out about the chain. I remind you, if you tell my parents anything about it, you will face hell." In our native language. Despite his threats, I laughed it off and assured him that there was nothing to worry about. I gave him a candy and sent him outside to wait in the lobby area. Later, I informed the parents about what I had discovered and advised them to take the chain and dispose of it in a river or someplace far away. This was the first step in addressing the situation. I promised to take care of him and requested them to bring him in every day so I could continue treating the boy. Since that day, my patient inflow reduced drastically. Every day, the boy would come and ominously predict the fate of my family members. At first, when my brother passed away as the boy had predicted, I shrugged it off as mere coincidence, attributing it to heart complications. However, when the boy foretold the demise of my wife, her subsequent abnormal behavior, and her eventual death under mysterious circumstances within a week shook me to the core. Soon after, one of my patients accused me of abuse, leading to legal troubles. I lost my medical license and subsequently, I went bankrupt. Today, I'm barely clinging on to life. I'm no longer happy. Now I work as a security guard at the local hospital. Due to the legal case and my tarnished reputation, I couldn't find a better job. I don't know what happened to the boy, and I've never tried to inquire about him. I'm just waiting for my time to come. Throughout my life, to my knowledge, I've never done anything bad to anyone. I wonder if it's because of karma or something else, but I'm certain that I've never intentionally or unintentionally harmed anyone. This is my life story. I don't have a special supernatural ability, but then the day came. My duty is 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. When we are in the old medical hospital, I saw a little girl walking down the stairs. The stairs are in front of our nursing station. By the way, the nursing station that we are staying at is for students. She looks normal for me. So far, nothing's creepy. After doing our daily duties, my colleague looked at the end of the corridor, where the fire exit is, and the door of the fire exit is in front of the room for patients with leukemia, but no one is staying there at that time. Then back to my colleague, she's looking at the end of the hallway. So I look where she's looking again. I saw the little girl, but this time, she is wearing a hospital gown. Then I said to my colleague, "Oh, that little girl again. Where are her parents?" My colleague told me to just shut up, and then I tried to look at the girl again, but she's not there anymore. After that incident, while I'm going down at the stairs, I saw the girl again sitting on the stairs, but this time I don't know why I'm having goosebumps. So I asked her, "Where are her parents?" Then she looked at me. I'm shocked because she's so pale. She then replied, "I'm waiting for my father." Then my colleague called my name, so I look at her and she said that, "Come here now." But when I turn around to talk again to the little girl, she's gone. When I was at the nursing station for nurses in that hospital, as I was going through patient info, I heard the two nurses' conversation. Nurse 1, "Is it her again?" Then the other nurse replied, "Yes, I feel pity for her." Then I asked them about the little girl roaming in the second floor and said that she's waiting for her father. The two nurses look at each other, then they told me to describe the little girl that I saw. I said that I think the girl was 4 or 5 years old, white skin, somewhat pale, with cute round eyes, curly hair. She's also a little thin. What they said shocked me. Nurse 1 said, "That girl you saw died in this hospital 3 years ago. That girl died because of pneumonia. She only have her father because her mother died in this hospital while giving birth to her. Have you heard us earlier about the phone call?" So I answered yes. The nurse 1 said that it is the little girl asking if her father is here. We cannot do anything, but we do feel guilty every time she would call, and we would just say, "Sorry, her father is not here." That time I feel so sorry for that little girl because I want a baby sister, and sad because she still don't see the light. And my colleague said that I'm so brave because I can talk with the dead spirit. I just didn't tell her that now I know that the little girl is already dead. I'm scared to death. I was not a believer in ghosts or the paranormal, including any gods, angels, fairies, spirits, or anything else of that nature until a few days ago. I am now a bit freaked out by this experience. Recently, I performed an eye cataract surgery on one of my patients, which typically restores vision after a few weeks. After 4 to 5 hours, when I removed the bandages around her eyes, she said, "Thanks to both of you." I thought she was referring to me and my assistant, but he was standing behind her, and there was no way she could have seen him. The next day, when I returned to check up on her, she mentioned that she had already been checked by another doctor. I asked my assistant who this other doctor was, but he said there was no one else. I asked the patient to describe how he looked, and she described a dark man-like figure wearing a white coat-like garment. I assured her that there was no one else like that present. I explained that it takes a few weeks to fully regain almost perfect vision, and she nodded in understanding. The very next day, I received a call to come and check on the patient, as she was scared and reported experiencing some unusual occurrences. When I asked for details, they said they weren't sure what was going on. With a sense of hesitation, I made my way there. The patient explained that she had been sound asleep in her bed when she suddenly felt something bouncing on it. Startled awake, she tried to kick whatever it was out of her bed, feeling half awake and half asleep, but desperately trying to fully wake up so she could deal with the intruder. She also felt it lying down next to her and attempted to push it away. She became scared and angry, convinced that someone was trying to mess with her. She called the nurse and began arguing with her. I tried to reassure her, telling her there was nothing to worry about. However, as we were saying this, insisting that there was no one messing with her or anything supernatural happening, Suddenly, the bed began shaking and bouncing violently. This time, everyone in the room witnessed it, and both the patient and the nurse became terrified, shouting loudly. Just as suddenly as it began, the shaking stopped, and whatever it was seemed to vanish. I still couldn't believe what had just happened, and spent the rest of the day checking the news for any reports of earthquakes. But there were none. We absolutely knew that something was there, bouncing and shaking her bed, and even lying down next to her. After shifting the patient to the next room, we didn't witness the bed shaking again, until one female nurse decided to test it. She sat on the bed, and there was a very strong vibration, which we all felt. Quickly, she got out of bed. It wasn't a dream, and it certainly wasn't something we made up. We left that bed as it was, and we still don't know what it was. My mom works as a doctor, and I work as a nurse in the same hospital, in southern part of India. Since I was little, because of my mother, I had access to hospital and its surroundings. I used to go to the hospital and see everything in it. I mean everything. I have had my gift, or we can say special ability, to see supernatural energies, ever since I can remember, although I can only have the best of them by seeing them and never speaking nor hearing them. One night, I was with my mom in the hospital because she was on her shift and I'm on mine. My mom was working in the delivery room, so she let me stay in the labor room. The labor and delivery room of the hospital were separated. I remember I was with one patient and she was sleeping. I was reading about information of the patient in the case sheet, and then I saw a man wearing jeans and a coat walk into the labor room. He sat beside the bed of the patient, held her hand, but never spoke. I just watched him as he did whatever he was doing, but I was kind of wondering as well why the patient wasn't waking up. Well, I never did bother myself, and I soon found myself reading again. After about 3 more minutes, I noticed the man standing in front of me. I was surprised at first, but he smiled at me. I smiled back, then I returned, going through case sheet. After a few seconds, he was still in front of me. I looked up at him with wonderment, and he smiled again. This time, he stretched out his hand and gave me a flower bouquet full of roses. I held the bouquet, looked at it for a second, and when I looked up, he was gone. I shrugged the whole idea of him disappearing, and I sat in the chair and unknowingly finally fell asleep. I was woken by my mom after she's done with her work and told me it was time to go home, as both of our shift are completed. When I fixed my things, I found the bouquet and remembered about the man the night before. I also saw the patient awake. I then asked her if she knew the man who went in last night. She said that there was no man last night. I told her everything the man did, how he held her hand, he looked at her, and how he stayed beside her. The woman cried even before I finished my story. I felt sorry for her, though I don't know why she cried. I then gave her the bouquet and told her she could stop crying. Upon seeing the bouquet full of roses, she hugged me tight and thanked me. As curious as I was, I asked her why she is thanking me. The patient then smiled, even with all the tears, and said, "It was my husband you saw last night. He died of car accident the night I was about to tell him I was pregnant. He knows I love roses and his smile." I work as a doctor in a private hospital, and I'm on a night shift schedule. I work on this unit where it is just one hallway of rooms with a 15-bed capacity. Room 15th is at the very end of the hallway where the stairway to exit is located. Other than that, it is a dead end. At night, that side is particularly more spooky than the rest of the unit. I've heard from my colleagues about some scary stuff they experienced at that side of the hallway, especially in room 15. The stories ranged from patients saying they hear voices of children playing, their giggles, a woman always shows up and controls them, and children become quiet all of a sudden. She shouts, "All back to bed." Also heard sounds of people talking in the middle of the night, where almost all are quiet, and the staff are on the nurse's station charting or doing something else. The unit does not have children at all. Most our patients are adults and never children, because we have a pediatric unit for that. So when patients say they hear children playing in the room, that kind of raises a red flag for us. These patients are alert and oriented and not confused, just to clarify that. In regards to people talking, we dismiss that as probably just us staff talking. This particular experience of mine is somewhat a little bit terrifying, as this is what happened to me when me and my colleague were talking about paranormal stuff in the hospital. One night, me and my colleague, who is a nurse, went to do checkup and help out the patient in room 15. I believe it was something about toileting or something else. Anyway, after finishing helping the patient and making him settled in the bed, the patient thanked the nurse and asked her, "Have you seen that lady by the door? She's been standing there behind you for a while now. She might need your help." There was no lady by the door, and he was the only patient at that side of the hallway. If we do have some patients, they are in their room and not ambulating, since most can't ambulate on their own, and definitely one of the staff will be heading directly to that patient if they were ambulating for risks of fall. Our patients are mostly old, so with that being said, me and nurse quickly did what needed to be done and helped the patient settle in the bed so we can leave the room as fast as possible. We were terrified, as we recall it. One time we had a low census in the unit. That means most of the rooms are vacant since we only have so few patients. Now here's the thing. I do have my own assignment of patients, but I never particularly mind where other patients are situated that time. I usually go to the restroom by the end of the hallway, passing by room 15. All night, every time I pass that room towards the restroom, I always feel like there was something off in the room. The room was particularly dark, and I was thinking maybe the patient wants it that way so he can sleep. The room's door is slightly open halfway, but I can still see inside the room. Though it is dark, I can still see silhouettes or outlines like the bed inside the room. White man-like appearance, like something glowing, radiating light like a big stadium light. All night long, when I passed that hallway, I really thought there was a patient in there. And to my surprise, a nurse of ours went in the room to set it up for an admitting patient. I was shocked and baffled that it was empty all along. Why was I confused to know it was empty? Because all night long I felt a presence in that room, which made me think that there was indeed a patient in there. That definitely creeped me out. Patients also reported of sounds like walking on the wall or ceiling. I would understand and shrug it off if they described it as walking outside their doors, since we always walk on the hallway. That's not something paranormal. However, the patient described the sound like it was inside the room and on the walls, which is very weird. I've got to share a wild night shift tale from my days as a junior doctor in a private hospital. Picture this. It's 2 a.m., graveyard shift, and my trusty partner in crime, a female colleague I adored working with, and I are the only two sprightly souls in a sea of snoozing seniors. I mean, we were practically the dynamic duo in a geriatric Gotham. Now, as we're making our rounds, ensuring our wards are shipshape and our patients are tucked in snug as bugs, we stumble upon the 6th ward. Suddenly, I'm hit with this harsh noise, like a malfunctioning robot trying to hijack a radio station. It's loud, it's clear, and it's utterly bizarre. I nudge my colleague, trying to see her reaction. "Do you hear that?" I ask, my eyes widening in disbelief. She tilts her head, listening intently, before delivering the understatement of the century. "Well, that's not your usual lullaby, is it? Sounds like someone's cranked up the TV or summoned a poltergeist." I couldn't help but chuckle at her witty remark, though deep down, the mystery of the sound broadcast had me intrigued. "Lisa, how would a disabled person manage to put on a radio or TV?" I quipped. "Anyway, this sounds more like someone talking right next to us, not from inside a closed room." She gave me a knowing look. "You're right, but let's carry on." We continued our rounds, but the voice suddenly ceased. I shook my head, chalking it up to fatigue. "Maybe I'm just tired," I said to myself. Moving on to our next patient, we found ourselves knee-deep in a messy situation. Lisa had to perform a full cleanup, changing sheets, washing the man, and outfitting him in fresh pajamas due to an unfortunate bout of liquid excrement. As she bustled about attending to the task, I offered to help by ferrying the soiled linens to the hallway where our cleaning supplies were stored. With the door open for easy access to our supplies, I busied myself with gathering the dirty laundry. As I bent down to retrieve a fallen sheet, something caught my eye in the hallway. A diminutive figure, clad in a white nightgown, glided silently past. My heart skipped a beat. What the? My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Lisa was just at Mr. Matthews' bedside. What's she doing out here? It didn't occur to me in that moment that if Lisa had left Mr. Matthews' room, I would have witnessed her leaving the room. I stood there, frozen for a moment, as the mysterious figure vanished from sight. I heard Lisa's voice behind me. "Hey, what's going on? You want to carry those dirty sheets all night?" She laughed. I jumped and said, "Lisa, but you were just outside in the hall?" "No, I was dressing and installing Mr. Matthew. Remember? What's wrong? Your face is as pale as snow. Are you feeling unwell? Do you need to throw up?" I put everything I had in my arms on the floor and ran into the hall. I still saw the apparition of the woman before she vanished through the wall. Lisa came after me as I was standing there with goosebumps all over my body and trembling from terror and cold. We were in the midst of summer, but I swear to you, in the hall, it was as cold as in a refrigerator. Lisa said, "Wow, why is it suddenly so cold?" She hadn't seen the woman, and I told her, "Don't ask me why I said this. We have to go downstairs. Mrs. Monroe has just died." Incredibly, she looked at me. "What? How will you know? We just looked after her. She was sleeping." "Lisa, I swear she is dead. I've seen her ghost passing through the hall," I declared. Confused, my colleague followed me downstairs, and when we entered Mrs. Monroe's room, it was peaceful and warm inside. In fact, she had died just a few moments ago. Her body was still warm. So we called the medical staff to issue the death certificate, and by the end of the shift, we washed and dressed her in a beautiful gown. I remained silent throughout, but Lisa couldn't believe it. She bombarded me with questions, unable to wrap her head around what had just happened. At home, after work, I collapsed into bed. I wasn't afraid anymore, just surprised. I managed to sleep for a few hours, and in my dreams, Mrs. Monroe appeared to me. She looked much younger than I had ever seen her, healthy and surrounded by a sort of white light. She said, "Thank you, dear, for looking after me all these years. I'm leaving now." Much later, as I reflected on events like this, I realized that the radio we heard at the beginning was an EVP of Mrs. Monroe. This is a story regarding our hospital on the outskirts of a small town. I have seen the apparition myself. After my grandfather and friends with him, my uncles and older cousins swear they have seen and heard the old doctor walking around the hospital. This happened in the 70s. Dr. Richard is a kind-hearted person, family man. His wife is quite opposite to him. He was the only doctor in that area for miles, and because of this fact, he became quite wealthy. He was well known and liked by neighbors and patients. One night he was invited to a party, which he attended with his wife and child, something out of character. Well, the thing is, he got very drunk and had an argument with his wife at the party, as he saw his wife being close and kissing a young guy. When it was time to leave, they continued to argue in the car. The argument got heated. The doctor lost control of the car and hit a big tree, which was only 500 meters from the hospital and 200 meters to his house. Then the car exploded, and the doctor, his wife, and their child were killed. The car is still on the hospital grounds, or what's left of it, burned out and bent metal, the signs of an impact. The apparition of Dr. Richard walks the long halls of the hospital. My grandfather, cousins, and family members say they saw him looking for his wife and child. Other times, he can be heard walking up the staircase, and in the morning, all the upstairs windows will be wide open. The apparition of his wife can be seen near the car. She is never seen doing anything else but standing there, dressed in a black cape. We were told never to walk past the car by ourselves, but while I was growing up, I saw his ghost, and no one has ever claimed to see the child. This happened just a few years ago when I was 36. At the time, I was working at a prestigious private hospital that was part of a nationwide chain. One day, the management informed me that I had to travel to a different state for an important surgery, one that required specialized expertise that only a few surgeons in the country possessed. The surgery was critical and time-sensitive, scheduled to take place in just 2 days. I made the decision to bring my girlfriend along with me. As we waited for the surgery date to arrive, we stayed in a motel nearby, which was taken care of by the organization. Though I can't recall the exact location of the motel, I believe it was situated very close to the hospital. We decided to step out to grab some food. While we were in the motel room, my girlfriend suddenly heard me call out in a loud voice, "Did you call me?" We were in my bedroom, and I found myself staring into the open closet. To my horror, on the shelf inside the closet, I could see the angry face of a black man glaring back at me. His eyes were glowing red, and his teeth resembled those of a vampire. His grin was sinister. In fear, I froze for a minute. My girlfriend, skeptical of some presence in the room, urged me to stick to our plan and go out for food as we had initially intended. So, we left the room behind and headed out. On our way out, I spoke to the manager of the motel and convinced him to investigate the room. However, unsurprisingly, nobody was found inside. After we finished our breakfast and returned to the room, we went back into our bedroom, the scary sounds still present. Though I attempted to hide my fear and appear strong, I couldn't help but ask that the angry-looking man stop looking at me. This time, my girlfriend accompanied me, reassured that there was no one in the room after the recent check. I pointed out the man in the closet to her, but she couldn't see anything. Later, I called the manager back, but even he couldn't spot anything, despite my insistence. They suspected that I might be seeing faces in reflections or in items stored in the closet. They even rearranged things, but the sinister grin of the black man still haunted me. Even a few motel staff members came to check, but none could see what I saw. Yet every time I entered that room, the dark figure was present. Eventually, we completed the surgery successfully and returned home, leaving that strange experience behind us. One day, we drove to pick up my girlfriend's mother from her office building. It was late, and as I sat in the car, I noticed a black man standing by the office. When I pointed him out, my girlfriend's mom looked but couldn't see anyone. Nevertheless, it was evident that she was concerned, and she urged us to hurry so we could go home. The next time I saw him was at a cemetery. My girlfriend's mom and I were walking around this old cemetery in the middle of the day, looking at old graves. I told her, "Look, that black man just fell down." She tried looking around, but we were the only two there. The other day, around 9 p.m., I heard the shower turn on. Startled, I opened the bathroom door and turned on the lights. To my horror, there was someone standing under the shower, obscured by the shower curtains. "Who is it?" I called out as I cautiously approached. I pulled back the shower curtains, only to come face to face with the same dark figure, wearing that evil grin, standing motionless under the water. Gathering every ounce of courage, I swiftly turned off the shower and hurried out of the bathroom. Recently, when I went to check up on patients before or after surgery, people told me they saw the same black figure behind me, with an evil grin. It's terrible that patients are becoming scared. However, now I have someone who has seen the same thing and can support me in validating that what I'm experiencing is real, and I'm not making it up or imagining it. Since then, I've visited the church and met with the priest to seek blessings, but unfortunately, nothing has changed. I still see him and always feel his presence wherever I am. I'm still not sure why this dark figure has become attached to me. You were brave enough to listen to the whole video. Stay brave and alert, look behind you, and watch for what's lurking in the shadows.